One common situation that we may encounter in a lot of different problems in programming is wanting to repeat a set of instructions a certain number of times. And the number of times could be like a variety of different things, such as when a condition is met or for like a set number of times. And for these sort of instances, we need to have a strategy to be able to repeat these instructions in a way that isn't going to be cumbersome to write. I'll give you a quick example here. Suppose that I wanted to print the numbers 1 to 10 onto the screen. Using the tools that we currently have, we could do something like print 1 and then do like print 2, print 3, and so on and so forth. But you can see that this would require us to write 10 lines of code and duplicate it over and over. And maybe we might want to print like 100 numbers or 1,000 numbers. In these cases, it's not feasible for us to write out a print statement 100 or 1,000 times. And this is where the idea of looping or repetition structures will come in. In most programming languages, you're going to have the ability to do what are known as loops. And loops are essentially ways of like repeating a set of instructions a specified number of times or until a specified condition is met. In this video, I'm going to specifically talk about while loops, which are a type of loop that loops while a condition is met or not met. And then in future videos, we'll take a look at for loops as well, which will loop for a specific number of items or a specific number of times. So we'll stick with this example of wanting to print out the numbers from 1 to 10. If I want to do this with a while loop, I'm going to do the following things. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable. I'm going to call this variable I for this example. I'm going to set it equal to 1. Okay, and what I is going to do is I is going to keep track of how many times we've repeated our loop. So a lot of times we'll start I at 0. In this case, I'm going to start it at 1 because I want to print the numbers from 1 to 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a loop next. What we do is we type in while, and then we're going to give the condition that we want to use to say, like, while this condition is true, continue to repeat this instruction. So for instance, I could say while I is less than 10. What this will do is it will repeat the instruction until I is no longer less than 10. So in this case, what we could do is we could say something like this. We could say print I. You'll notice that this line is indented. It's a similar sort of idea as if statements. We indent the line, and that tells Python that everything that is indented is going to be repeated while the condition that I is less than 10 is satisfied. So essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to start at I equals 1, and we're going to come here, and it's going to say is 1 less than 10. 1 is less than 10, which means that we enter the loop, and then we print I. And then we come back up to the top of the loop, and we say, well, is I still less than 10? Which it is. And if you're looking at this, you may have noticed that we never change the value of I, which means that I will always be less than 10, which means that this loop will never end. This being the case, we're going to want to change the value of I. And to do that, we typically just do something like I plus equals 1. So now what happens is I is set to 1. 1 is less than 10, so then we print out 1. And then we increment I by 1. So I becomes 2 now, for instance. So then we'll have 2 is less than 10, and then we print 2, and then it becomes 3, and then it continues on until we reach 10. So I'm going to show you if I try to run this now, what will happen is you'll see I'll get the numbers printed from 1 to 9. You'll see it doesn't print the number 10. And the reason being is because when I increments to 10, it will say is 10 less than 10. And it isn't, which means that it skips all of the indented lines of code and continues on from there. So really what has to happen here if we want it to print the numbers from 1 to 10 is we have to make this less than or equal to 10. If we do this, now when I is equal to 10, it will print out 10, increment to 11, and then it will stop the loop. So you see when we run this, we get all the numbers from 1 to 10. And this is the basic fundamental idea of a while loop. It will allow us to repeat a set of conditions while a condition or a set of conditions are met. Now, similar to if statements, we can use things like and as well as or and all of the other Boolean operators to sort of like chain different commands together. And we're able to utilize that to create more complex sort of conditions. However, this is sort of the most basic while loop structure. And as we learn about more structures and as we learn about different types of loops and different types of variables, we're going to see more while loops. But for now, we just want to get the general idea of exactly what a while loop is. So this is the general structure that will allow us to repeat instructions while a condition is met. And this will allow you to write basic loops now.